morning, everybody. Good morning. And well, this morning we're going to talk about Vivek. There's a lot of other stuff going on in the news right now, but I'm looking for more development. There's still some fallout from the Maduro capture, and we're going to talk about that a little bit this morning. But I want to start with this story about Vivek. I think Nick Fuentes actually said it best. We social media is a trap for politicians. I'm swearing off Instagram and X where it's too easy to get a distorted sense of the public's concerns, says Vivek Ramaswamy. And Nick Fuentes says, hey, we bullied Vivek off of Twitter. Yeah, that's kind of what happened. And fair play. I'll tell you what, I liked a lot of the stuff that Vivek had to say in the early part of the 2024 election cycle. I like the idea of Vivek getting involved with Elon and doing Doge. It seemed like he had his head on straight and was looking to do some good stuff for us. But we've talked about the problems with Indian immigrants before, and here's where Vivek really stepped in it. He came out full-throated in support of H-1B visas. Now, the Donald also and Elon also said some positive things about H-1B visas, and they have backed off that substantially because the public has been very clear. We're tired of that nonsense. I've brought up the H-1Bs many times before and talked about probably the most notorious scandal around the H-1B visas was when Disney was hiring H-1B, primarily Indians. The stats are very clear on this. More than 90% of all H-1Bs go to Indian immigrants. And then what happens is you get over here on an H-1B and you're kind of beholden to your employer because if you lose your job, you get sent back. And that's why large corporations love the H-1B program, is they have this additional layer of leverage over the employee where people will do things that normally, an American citizen won't do, because an American citizen can say, whoa, that's some crooked, shady shit, and I'm not going to let myself get involved with it. I'm going to quit this job and go get a different job. Well, if you're an Indian immigrant on an H-1B visa, you got two things going for you as far as the company's concerned. One, you're afraid that if you lose the job, you're going to get sent back to India, which, yes, is what's going to happen. And two, you're all in on the whole ISAT culture. And so the idea of honor, morality, ethics is just completely foreign to you. Intellectually, it doesn't exist, right? So where Vivek put his foot in it, he gave this speech, and this is about a 1-minute video. We're going to watch the whole clip. He gave this speech at TPUSA, and what he talks about here is important because he so grossly misrepresents the idea.
If you really believe in this idea, think about where it leads you. It leads you to believe that Donald Trump is less of an American than Joe Biden because Donald Trump's mother was an immigrant and his grandfather was an immigrant.
Okay, I'm going to start that over because I had a sound issue on my end.
If you really believe in this idea, think about where it leads you. It leads you to believe that Donald Trump is less of an American than Joe Biden because Donald Trump's mother was an immigrant and his grandfather was an immigrant. That doesn't...
Okay, let me back up a little bit. This clip picks up a little late in the speech. What he's talking about is the idea of heritage Americans. Now, Mario and I have used that expression on this show many times in the past, talking about heritage Americans. And Vivek is materially misrepresenting the concept. Vivek is suggesting that the idea of a heritage American is exclusively and explicitly just a counting of essentially blood measure, how long your family's been in the United States. And that is not the concept. That's a part of it. There is a part of it, certainly. Now, one thing that we want to see is we don't want to see foreign nationals come to this country with no heritage, no history, no connection to the country, and get elected to high office. Right? We don't want to see illegal foreigners, hostile foreign invaders, like we've seen so many of coming over the southern border, come in and affect our voting. Now, because one of the things we're going to talk about this morning is the SAVE Act. There's a lot of noise being made. That's trending on social media as well. And I'm going to tie all this together for you, hopefully nice and neat and within the next 22 minutes so I can get on the road and go to work. You've got Vivek giving this material misrepresentation of what the Heritage American concept is. As Mario and I have discussed it on the show, what we're talking about is white people, black people, sure, right? Hispanics, the skin color, the ethnicity doesn't matter. What matters is the connection to the United States. If you're somebody speaking with a thick foreign accent, likely they don't qualify as a Heritage American. But even that is not a guarantee. And I'll be fair, the concept is somewhat ephemeral and vague, but it's kind of like push-ups or pornography. You know it when you see it, right? You right? I don't care who you are. If you're a grown man or woman, you know the difference between Larry Flint's work and a Botticelli, right? You may see a nipple in both of them, but you know the difference. It may be intangible and difficult to describe, but you know the difference. When you're counting a PT test and those elbows don't break the plane, you know it. You don't have to break out a protractor to check the angle of the elbow. You push-ups and pornography. You know it when you see it. It doesn't matter if you can exactly explain what the difference is. You know it when you see it, right? So with the concept of the Heritage American, there are people who have a stake in this country. We've talked about voting before and how I would love to see the 14th and 19th Amendments repealed, because the fact is, at no point in the history of the United States of America was it illegal for a person to vote based on an immutable characteristic. It was only ever the case that there were minimum requirements that had to be met in order to vote, like you had to be a landowner, right? And that's not about racism. That's not about ethnicity. It's about having a connection to the community, right? I mean, even today, there's some limited version of that, right? I don't live in Rockdale County anymore. I live in a different county. So I can't go to Rockdale County, where I used to live, and vote for the local school board or the local board of commissioners. I used to vote for those things. I no longer have that. That's no longer in my wheelhouse, right? I've got a troll here saying Heritage American is a racist term. Okay, so you're a low IQ shitburger. That's fine. Go ahead and make your comments. We are a nation of immigrants. That is false. That statement represents a fundamental ignorance of history. A nation of immigrants. That is false. That is incorrect. Okay? You mistake conquest and immigration. You mistake the function of the history of the world for the current trend of hostile foreign invaders entering this country for the sole purpose of exploiting our resources through our suicidal largesse. We are not a nation of immigrants. That is mush-mouth fool speak coming out of your floppy face hole, and you should stop it. So let's go back to Vivek's statement and listen to what he's saying, because he is materially misrepresenting the concept.
Make any sense? Leads you to believe that somehow Bernie Sanders is more of an American than Senator Bernie Moreno from my home state, an America First patriot, because Bernie Moreno was a naturalized citizen from Colombia. It makes you think that Marco Rubio, our great Secretary of State, is somehow less of an American than Elizabeth Warren because she's a Native American, which we all know, right? Doesn't make any sense. It's loony. It's crazy talk.
And that's a great comparison, actually. Marco Rubio to Elizabeth Warren. Elizabeth Warren is, by definition, a heritage American. Oh, like I said, that definition is vague and nebulous, a little complex. But Rubio, I would say Rubio has proven that he has stakes in this country. However, Vivek is making this argument to try and
it makes you believe
legitimize the criticism of foreigners getting involved in American politics. And then he's going to go on to argue that we need more H-1B visas. Well, like I was laying out, the H-1B visas are a problem. 90% go to Indians. Those Indians are coming over here with fake degrees. And when I say fake degrees, what I mean, I won't beleaguer this point too long. We did a deep dive on the Indian invasion. Y'all can go back and watch that on Rumble. It's behind the paywall, but it's Mario did excellent research work on that one. But the 90% of H-1Bs that come over, the vast majority of those are coming with false degrees from universities, which exist literally to print degrees. They are fraud institutions. They are institutions designed to commit fraud. So how else does foreign influence affect American elections? You'll hear people like this, Greater Miyakwako, this troll that we've got here. I'm sure he'll make the argument that it's illegal for illegal aliens to vote in American elections, and so they never do. One, that's false. It is true that it's illegal for them to vote in the elections, but it is, in fact, the case that they have voted in the elections. We had one of the pieces of the 2020 election theft was the printing of illegal false driver's licenses distributed to Chinese nationals by the Chinese Communist Party, allowing them to vote illegally. And the big problem with that is once the vote is cast, it's cast. It can't be uncast, right? You can bust them for voting. You can bust them for having cast the illegal vote, but there's no way to retract the vote. Once it's cast, it's cast. It's lost into the system of anonymous votes. The troll says if they live in the U.S., they should be able to vote. No, that may be the least intelligent thing you've said so far, which is amazing. I didn't know you could get dumber than that. There is, y'all, if you move to Pakistan, for example, you have to be an ethnic Pakistani to vote in elections or run for office. And that's just one example. But that is the case in all the Middle Eastern countries, right? The only places where you can go and enter politics as a foreign national or as a foreigner who has been naturalized are those countries that used to be majority white Western civilization. And that is suicidal largesse. You are allowing the influence of foreigners whose interest is their host nation, not their current residents. People like Ilhan Omar, who openly brag about being for Somalia, not America. And the result is they come in and under the current laws, because the Democrats fought so very hard for this, the census does not ask the question of citizenship. And so you get your sanctuary states like New York and especially California, where they have more congressional representation than they should because they get to count a boatload of illegal immigrants as residents in the census. And then on top of that, because of that illegitimate census based on illegal aliens being present as members of their public, they're also getting more actual resources, right? Tax resources, tax incentive subsidies, et cetera, from the federal government for their states, which they're then laundering to illegal immigrants through systems like the California Medicaid program, the CalAid. Immigrants, okay, this is adorable. Immigrants are welcomed into the country as guests and should be allowed full access. They are working and pay taxes and add to the fabric of the country. These statements are false. You're just wrong. And let me tell you how you're wrong. It is the case that there is such a thing as an immigrant that enters this country, works, and pays taxes. But I am specifically talking about illegal aliens, hostile foreign invaders here. And you are doing something akin to what Vivek was doing with his speech here. You are conflating two unrelated things so that you can pretend as if the good qualities of one are somehow transferred through the transitive property to the others who do not share that good quality. If you want to conflate immigrants, then the fact is that the illegal immigrant that is a complete and total negative on the U.S. system outnumbers the valuable immigrant almost 2-1. If you should like for their transitive properties to carry across, then we should treat everybody with a foreign accent as if they are probably a rapist or murderer. But we don't do that. We don't do that. We intelligently understand when a person is a legitimate, interested American who has decided to renounce their foreign ties and come to the United States and make a go of becoming an American and assimilating into our culture, where they are, as part of that culture, going to work and pay taxes. People are inherently good outside the social constructs. I see. So we're talking about, we're dealing with somebody here who has never traveled, who has never experienced the world outside of basic Western culture. You may have spent a little time in Europe, probably not. But my son, my sweet summer child, that idea that people are inherently good outside of the social constructs. Clearly, you've never hunted down and eliminated Taliban operators who were mutilating children. You've never seen a Muslim man chain his Down syndrome child in the front yard because it's more convenient than cleaning him. You have not been in the world. I'm sorry, son. You're going to have a hard life because you're going to wake up to something scary when you fail to understand what it means to be what it means to be where you don't belong. You're going to find yourself somewhere that you shouldn't be. You're going to be ill prepared for it, and your rose-colored glasses are not going to do you any favors there. So, how does this all tie together with the Maduro stuff and the fallout from that? There are some rumors circulating, and I don't know how far these go yet, but there is certainly some interest to be studied that part of the impetus for the capture of Maduro has to do with Trump's concern about the theft of the 2020 election. Right? Now, again, we haven't gone deep on this yet because the timing just didn't hit right around the Christmas holiday. But a couple of weeks ago, there was news around some 350,000 illegal votes in the state of Georgia, where, understand, the 2020 election was won on about 11,000 votes in the state of Georgia. Like that, there were other places where there were thin margins where it could have gone the other way, but the biggest one was the 11,000 in the state of Georgia. There was all kind of shenanigans in the state of Georgia. There was the fake water main break that we almost immediately the next day we knew, oh, there was no water main break. That was a lie. That was an entirely, completely from whole cloth fabrication. It didn't happen, right? They tried to come out and show us some work order from like 12 hours earlier. Oh, well, there was a clogged toilet that they called the plumbers. Yeah, okay, no, shut the fuck up. You lied about there being a problem in the building so that you could close it down, and suddenly we had this. You had the fraud shift, right, where it was obvious to anybody with eyes that fraud occurred, and now we've seen this evidence of the 350,000 illegal votes. That's the election. That evidence by itself tells us that 2020 was absolutely 100%. It is no longer a question in controversy. The 2020 election was a fraud. It was stolen from the American people. Well, there is some speculation that Trump's interest in the apprehension of Maduro has to do with the Venezuelan involvement with the Dominion voting machines. And I do want to address that. I expect there will be more tinfoil hat conspiracy theory stuff coming out around that, but I want you guys to kind of view all of that with a little skepticism, at least a little skepticism, right? Because the fact is, we saw the water main fake out in Georgia. We saw the early call in Nevada. We saw the just ridiculous lawsuit dismissals on bullshit administrative grounds where none of them were actually adjudicated. We saw the many counties where it was just so painfully obvious that the county was stolen that the judges actually looked at the evidence and said, okay, it's clear that you can prove that this county was stolen through fraud, but this county by itself is not enough to have changed the election. And so we're not going to pursue this. Right. Many of you saw the interview that I did with David Schaefer, where we discussed how the courts handle election fraud. And it really is as simple as there is so much election fraud in every single election that the courts cannot prosecute all of it. And so in the interest of fairness, they choose to prosecute none of it. Right? But there was a lot of noise about the Dominion voting machines. And yes, there was a lot of evidence to suggest that those machines were a significant point of vulnerability. In fact, I would go so far as to say that it looks very much like there were so many other vectors of fraud around the 2020 election that the vulnerability of the Dominion voting machines should strike you as suspicious. They were so vulnerable, it's like they wanted us to look at them to distract from everything else. Yes, I'm saying that the entire Dominion voting machine scandal was a red herring to distract from the actual fraud. The troll says, or maybe there is no fraud at all and it's wishful thinking. I mean, you're living in a bubble. You're a person who doesn't understand, who doesn't read the news, who doesn't understand things. That's fine. I appreciate you watching the show this morning. Go ahead and hit the like and subscribe. Come back and troll me tomorrow. It'll be fun. No, that there is fraud. Okay. Well, I'll say this to the troll. The idea that there was no fraud, that's not a credible thought that anybody has. Okay. Following the 2020 election, in the months immediately following it, leading up to January 6th and February 20th and all that, first we were told that this was the safest, freest, fairest, and most secure election of all time with no fraud. That was the narrative for several weeks. And then rapidly, it changed. And even the lefty mainstream shill media that had been running that line switched their narrative and started saying there was no significant mass fraud that changed the outcome of the election. Because the original statement was falsifiable, and it was obviously and plainly falsified. It really is that simple. Uncle Steve says, yes, but our governor says we could not investigate because of their algorithm. Yeah, you know what? The easiest thing that we should have done, that every state in the country should have done with Dominion, is say, okay, look, you refused the subpoena. That's a violation. That's a breach of your that's a breach of your conduct. Morality clauses. That's a breach of the morality clauses of your contracts. You're in breach of contract. Your contract is null and void. Your contract is null and void. So now we've got the SAVE Act, which has already passed through the House. In fact, it passed through the House almost 4 months ago. And it still has not been brought for a vote in the Senate. And what I want you guys to do, get out there on X, on Facebook, wherever you do your social media, and talk about it. We need to see pressure put on John Thune, he's a coward. He's weak. His appointment was a mistake. Right? But we need to see some pressure put on Thune and the Senate GOP to pass the SAVE Act. Now, it doesn't get me everything I want. It doesn't fix the elections entirely. But it requires verification of citizenship to vote. I'm in. I hate to be in this position because I want to be a Fourth Amendment absolutist. I do. But as we've seen time and time again, if we don't pay attention to and build our stratagems and our security around understanding reality, around practical solutions, then our rigid adherence to certain civil liberties becomes a total liability, because evil men will abuse you. The SAVE Act is a step in the right direction. It doesn't reduce us back down to only property. If I had my way, you would be married with children, property owner, net positive taxpayer. Those 4 things. Property owner, married with children, net positive taxpayer. 1 vote per household. That would dramatically simplify and streamline the voting process and almost entirely eliminate the possibility of fraud. Almost, not quite, but almost entirely. You'd still see donation smurfing and that kind of stuff happening, but that's where you go. All right, guys, I got to put a pin in it because I got to get on the road. Thanks for watching this morning. We love you, and we will see you. You too, troll. Come on back. Don't be that little bitch that comes out and runs his mouth and then runs away. Come back tomorrow and run your mouth a little more. Oh, we appreciate that. And we'll see you guys tomorrow. And no, Sergeant Major, there has never been a time when a voter in the U.S. didn't have to meet some basic criteria. I'm arguing that we should increase that criteria substantially.